The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The East Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Hello everybody, welcome back to East Lindsey again for the last time this working week. It's a Friday. Now then, I've got a question for you to begin this one. Where is the most important Methodist chapel in Lincolnshire? Now, if you answer that question with the town of Epworth, you're not wrong, but I reckon the one that's here in this village is equally as important. Welcome to Raithby. Raithby, Threathie's Farm. Wrapping up the week in East Lindsey, today we come to Raithby, which should not be confused with another village of the same name also in Lincolnshire. This is Raithby by Spilsby, but it rarely gets referred to by its longer title. Raithby is around 2 miles away from Spilsby. It's a simple linear village with a few hills in it and around it. It's not the best known village in the world, but a lot of people do come to it for a cheeky little getaway. They can do that thanks to Raithby Hall, a dominant building that commands the attention of the entire village. The Hall is a huge holiday home these days, but it has spent some time as a residential care home. Before that, it was the seat of two very important Lincolnshire families, namely the Rawnsleys and the Brackenburys. Raithby Hall has seen some interesting characters stay within its walls. In its time, it's hosted the poet Alfred Lord Tennyson and the Methodist founder John Wesley. Wesley has arguably the greater connection to Raithby. Had it not been for his association and friendship with Robert Brackenbury, Raithby would likely not have its best known feature. This village has the oldest Methodist chapel in Lincolnshire, built within the grounds of the Hall by Robert Brackenbury. It sits over a stable block and it's still very much in use. Elsewhere in this one, we'll get a look at a pub that claims to be even older than that chapel. The Red Lion, parts of which are 16th century, has ties to the Hall and to the old school, which we learned a little bit about yesterday in Mavis Enderby. So to sum up, Raithby is a very historic village, far greater than the sum of its parts. Here we have Raithby as it was in 1900. It's never been the largest parish in the country, and it's sort of always been sandwiched between the rolling hills of the Wolds. The extent of the boundaries in 1900 were pretty much the same as they are today. Raithby village is right in the middle, with the main area of settlement defined by this cluster. Further afield, the boundaries take in a few wooded areas, but nothing to the extent of neighbouring Mavis Enderby. Note there's a road running to the south of it all. That's the B1195 these days, which acts as a bypass. Raithby has always been off the beaten track, so to speak. That said, its relatively isolated position didn't affect its status as one of the most religiously important villages in Lincolnshire. Most of the main bits here are centred around Raithby Hall. One of the features of the Hall's grounds is this chapel, still very much in use. Right next door is the church, and there's a pub not far away. It's all still as depicted here. If anything has changed, it's the northern section of the place. Raithby is a simple little village, all things considered. Our walk will start in the north of the place and essentially we'll head south towards the Hall, finishing at a chapel in its grounds. For the most part, this northern end of the village is all residential. It's not a straight path we'll be taking here. Raithby is a very windy village with several bends in its main street. It can still be considered a linear settlement, even though there are some offshoots like School Lane, for example. Raithby has not seen a raft of house building over the last century. Indeed, the only expansion it's really had since the days of the OS maps we use would be this northern arm. It's a happy, eclectic mix of houses and bungalows. Quite nice, all in all. So Raithby's main landmarks are all clustered together around the southern end of the village. They are the Red Lion pub, the site of the old school, the church, Raithby Hall, and the Methodist chapel. First up, we have that pub. This is the Red Lion, a mid-18th century Grade 2 listed building, although their website would have you believe this is somewhat older. The claim is not totally outlandish actually, because parts of it, not all of it, go back to the 16th century. Therefore, those bits make this one of the oldest buildings in the village. It still has some original mud and stud walls with a reed and mud ceiling. The pub was probably thatched as well at one time because there are traces of thatch in its roof. The earliest part of the building runs beside the road and was probably a hall house with front doors opposite the back doors, which means it wasn't built any later than the 16th century. The first floor was added sometime between 1900 and 1910. In the early 20th century, the Red Lion belonged to Messrs Soulby, Sons and Winch before being purchased by a Mr Preston Rawnsley in 1932. It was then auctioned in 1941 along with local farms, cottages and land. It was then bought by the Shades pub, owned by James Hole & Co. It was also a home as well as a pub. The Greenwood family lived in the pub from 1859 to 1959. Robert Leary Greenwood took the licence in 1859 and his son held the licence until 1926. He had 11 children. On that evidence, he could have done with a TV. All 11 were born in the pub and 2 of them, a pair of sisters, lived here until 1959. One of the sisters taught at the village school, whilst one of her brothers, Joseph, returned to the village after a lifetime of service as a butler. All of the family were ardent church workers. Mary Greenwood played the church organ for 12 years, and her mother was organist for nearly 60 years from the age of 12 to 70. In the early days, the pub was open from 6 AM to 10 PM 6 days a week. The ale was brought up from the cellar in jugs. The only light available to make that job easier came via paraffin lamps and candles. Water came from outside wells or water systems. There are 3 wells at this pub. It was once rare to see women in this building. Now they're welcome just as much as the men. Over the years, lots more things have changed considerably, but this pub still remains a social gathering point with a great atmosphere. Okay, so there may be a very successful pub here in Raithby, but there's no shop, at least not anymore. There used to be something akin to a shop nearby though. If you have a look across the road here, you can see this house. And according to its nameplate, that is an old bakery. Now, let's go between the old bakery and the pub. We're going down School Lane next. So we mentioned the school there, and that's the next thing to talk about. Until 1949, the children of Raithby had access to a village school, a service that's been around in this place since 1668. The first school was founded by Thomas Lawford. It was a free school where children from Raithby, Mavis Enderby, Hundleby and Sawsthorpe were educated. The school was rebuilt in 1866 to hold 45 pupils. By the 1870s, it was known as Raithby and Mavis Enderby School and Raithby and Enderby C of E School by 1925. It closed on the 21st of December 1949. It was located on School Lane. It was formed of what were possibly 2 perpendicular ranges of buildings. It's unclear how much, if any, of the original buildings remain today. The church in Raithby is a Grade 2 listed building dedicated to Holy Trinity. Dating from the 12th century originally, this was largely rebuilt in 1873 by Sir George Gilbert Scott. The chancel was enlarged in 1886 by Temple Moore, and the tower renewed by Hodgson Fowler in 1895. This one has several monuments which commemorate members of the Rawnsley family of Raithby Hall. For example, a memorial window is dedicated to Mary Jeanette Rawnsley, who died in 1873. The Rawnsley family also gave 3 stained glass windows to this church in 1887. The Lit Gate is also a memorial for a member of the family. It's dedicated to the memory of Sophie Janet Rawnsley. The Lit Gate is Grade 2 listed and dates from 1907. Elsewhere in the grounds of the churchyard is a stone cross, mostly dating from 1903, but it reuses part of an earlier shaft. The old base is not used and lies 6 feet away. Okay, we've got 2 things left to see here in Raithby, and I'm going to have to do this from the churchyard, the rest of this video from the churchyard, because the 2 landmarks in question are Raithby Hall and the Methodist Chapel, which technically speaking are all within the hall's grounds, the pair of them. And because they're in the hall's grounds, it's private and I can't get through into the grounds, obviously. There is a gate from the churchyard to do that, you can see it here, but that will be private access only. The hall is up there and I can just about see it above this wall. The Methodist Chapel is over here. It's this building here. So a lot of these shots of it will be from the back. Let's talk about them both because they're linked together. This is Raithby Hall, a red brick building that was the seat of both the Brackenbury and Rawnsley families. It was built in around 1760 for Robert Carr Brackenbury and extended in 1848 and 1873, again by Sir George Gilbert Scott. It became an old people's home but retained its Grade 2 listing. It's not an old people's home anymore. Today it's back to being a private home, but you can experience this place for yourself too. That's because it's also now a large holiday house venue after the current owners submitted applications for listed building consent and change of use. It has 15 bedrooms and 4 reception areas, and this building has taken on a life of its own over the years, even leaving the people who now own it totally amazed. It's all owned by Brenda Hobbins and her husband Stephen. They bought the hall while they were looking for somewhere to expand their teacher training company named Osiris Educational. After searching near and far, they eventually discovered Raithby Hall. While the pair were renovating the hall, they noticed a sign pointing towards the secret bird garden. It led them through a maze of long grass and weeds before emerging into an overgrown landscape. That part of the hall's grounds has now been turned into an oriental floating garden, something which attracts many visitors from all over the country. Since buying the property, the couple have transformed many of the rooms to reflect their personalities and remind them of their travels. The master bedroom's decor is inspired by Austrian artist Gustav Klimt, who was known for his glamorous approach to decor and rich fabrics. Other rooms draw inspiration from countries around the globe. The Italian drawing room, complete with stunning mirrors and authentic Italian decorations, is a keen contrast to the Egyptian lounge, where you can relax surrounded by Egyptian gods. Alfred Lord Tennyson was a frequent visitor to this hall and used to be a warden for the Brackenbury family. He would write a poem called The Eagle while sitting in one of its many, many rooms. He wasn't the only famous person who knew this building. So that's the hall, but what makes that chapel so interesting then? Well, let's find out. You see, the hall was stayed in by quite a few different people. One of those people was good old John Wesley himself, apparently. It's known that John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist Church, spent many a night at Raithby Hall. In fact, Wesley's connection to Raithby runs far deeper than just the occasional 40 winks in one of its bedrooms. In 1779, Robert Brackenbury built John Wesley a chapel in the grounds of the hall. That chapel is still here, Grade 1 listed, and just inside the entrance gates, it is the oldest Methodist chapel in Lincolnshire. To boot, it's also one of the oldest in England that's still in use. Built over a stable block, making this one of the more peculiar locations for a chapel, Wesley himself opened it, dedicating it on the 5th of July, 1779. John Wesley's journal records that when he visited Raithby to open this chapel, Raithby Hall was a mere shell, having only just been finished. Nonetheless, the wealth and power of Robert Brackenbury meant that this chapel was quickly filled with deeply serious hearers. Robert Brackenbury was a wealthy man who had become a fervent Methodist after meeting Wesley in 1776. He had the money to finance a chapel, and he certainly put it to good use. Brackenbury became one of Wesley's staunchest supporters, often travelling with him. His will stated that this chapel should be used by Methodists until such a time that the villagers could build themselves a chapel elsewhere in Raithby, either by themselves or via a later owner of the hall. Another chapel was of course never built. There was obviously no great incentive for a new chapel, and ever since, the congregation has continued to cross the stable yard to worship. This chapel still retains original features, such as its dado rail, segmental vaulted ceiling, box pews, and an octagonal tester. So, as you can imagine, this village played an important role in the spread of Methodism in Lincolnshire. John Wesley is known to have declared Raithby an earthly paradise, and to be honest, he wasn't wrong in his assessment. Okay, so once you walk past the front entrance to Raithby Hall, the village just kind of stops at this point. There is another house, or pair of houses. This could be two houses actually, rather than just one. I think it is two. But once you get beyond this, there's not a lot of much, quite frankly. It just runs off into the countryside. And that's it. That brings us to the end of Raithby, and also to the end of this week's East Lindsey run. So I'm going to head up that little hill up there, through the trees, and away. Thanks for watching this week. So then, the completion of our walk through Raithby means we've come to the end of another batch of East Lindsey parishes, and that's your lot for 2025. Fear not, Lincolnshire folk, I will be back next year to East Lindsey. We still have loads more to cover. Thanks for watching. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.